Joined here by Stepehen Bishop. Now, I got to admit, Stephen, I don't know if you heard, but man, I got to tell you right off the jump, this is a fantastic interview for me. So I want to thank you for joining us. I think this is going to be really great. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. I mean, it's amazing to, be asked to come talk about the podcast after, like you were about to say, the first one. But yeah, no, I'm doing well. Unfortunately, I'm on strike now as an actor. But fortunately, we're not promoting a project here, so I'm able to do it. I don't think I would have been able to do it had I been promoting something that I was a part of as an actor. So glad to be here.
I do want to get to that and your thoughts, because some people, in reference to that and your acting career, don't know exactly what's going on. So I do want to get to that. But I got to admit, right off the jump, okay, I just want to talk a little bit about your baseball career and then you getting to talk to Barry Bonds. Obviously, playing David Justice, being friends with him, okay, and then playing him in Moneyball. But first and foremost, you have a very great baseball background, playing in minor leagues, playing in college. But you got to interview Barry Bonds this week. And if you hadn't listened to the podcast, it is absolutely fantastic. My man was like hurting about the Hall of Fame. When you were interviewing him, I guess, what did you feel in reference to like what he was going through and not being in the Hall of Fame, and just everything that's happened?
Well, I kind of felt what you felt. I mean, I could feel some palpable pain there. Barry's a very good friend of mine, and I've known him for a very long time. And I think that's one of the reasons that he allowed me to ask that question and was willing to answer it. But, when you put in that kind of work for your entire life and you grow up in baseball and your father and your godfather and everybody in your life your life revolves around baseball. And then you put up the numbers that he put up over the course of time that he put them up, and you don't get to reap the ultimate reward for it when you have been, by, like I said in the podcast, by most accounts, the greatest player to ever put spikes in dirt.
No doubt.
When you don't get to really reap those rewards, it's got to be painful. And I could see it, I could feel it, and I was just grateful that he felt comfortable enough with Jerry and myself to answer it. And I'm glad that he got a chance to talk about it, because, I've been on, like I said, on the podcast, Hollywood Swinging. I've been on Sports Illustrated Television speaking about it. I've been on ESPN as a co-host on His and Hers speaking about it. And I feel like, as a baseball player, as somebody who understands the difficulty of doing what he did, I owe it to him to stand up for him. He did a lot for me as a young player. And so I will forever champion his efforts until he gets into the Hall. I think that he deserves it. I think he earned it even before any allegations of what people are holding him out for were in place. He was a Hall of Famer coming out of Pittsburgh. And there's no denying that. I don't think, other than Alex Rodriguez, I don't think there's any other two-time MVP that's not in the Hall, let alone a three-time, and that's what he did in Pittsburgh. He's a seven-time MVP.
Yeah, nobody, to your point, that has not happened. And Stephen, to that point, it hasn't happened in any sport of the big three, right? Like football, baseball, basketball, it has not happened.
I had to go to the big four to find anybody who was even matched him, let alone surpassed him in MVPs, and that was Wayne Gretzky in hockey.
Right.
It's like I said on the show, when I rattled off the numbers that I rattled off, to think that person, regardless, let's take the name away from it, just the numbers, and I tell you that guy is not in the Hall of Fame in that sport. You'd have to be like, well, what are they doing over there at the Hall of Fame? I mean, how's that possible?
I think that when y'all talked about it and viral nature that happened during it. And fans were asked, do you believe that Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame? And nearly 80%. So 1 million people voted on this. TMZ, Believe, our partners over at Believe.
Dan Patrick.
1 million people, Stephen, voted on this. 800,000 people voted yes that he should be in the Hall of Fame. How many people have to vote and think that he should be in the Hall of Fame before it actually happens?
You know, somebody wrote on our page that, you know, it doesn't help that he was a jerk to writers. And I wrote back, well, then doesn't that just accentuate the point that this has become a popularity contest and not the place where the best players go to hang their cleats up? I mean, listen, not everybody's a gregarious and personable guy when they're at work. You know what I mean? And Barry had a chip on his shoulder from when his father played, and he saw how the media treated his father. And so there was some things going on there that, you know, let's just say there were extenuating circumstances. But I don't think that, you know, the hurt feelings of people involved with the way they may have, you know, gotten treated when they asked him certain questions and things like that should allow them to block this man from the ultimate, you know, plateau in our sport. And like I said, I think it's egregious. I think it's terrible. I think it puts a stain on the Hall because let's talk about Roger Clemens too. I mean, Roger Clemens was damn near a Hall of Famer coming out of college. You know, I mean, and he's not there. There's Pete Rose, you know. Now here's the thing. With Pete Rose, there's a different animal there. On every clubhouse wall, there is a sign that says, do not bet on these games. You know, there's a sign there. As soon as you walk out of the clubhouse, there's a sign on the wall leading out. At least there used to be when I was walking in and out of clubhouses. And, you know, he's not there, but he's another one. How long? The thing I say about with Barry, there's punishments in place now for steroid use, for PED use, let's say. The lifetime ban doesn't come into play until the third offense. So why are we lifetime banning a guy like Barry or a guy like Roger when that's not in play for them? They weren't second and third time offenders. I can't see how it's fair. I know there's a lot of people out there who have things to say, oh, the cheating thing. But when you say what you just said, 1 million people and 800,000 vote for him to be there, that should, you know, the court of public opinion should prevail in this case.
I agree.
All the fans want him there. Well, not all, but the vast, vast majority of the fans want him there.
So I'm going to stay with me on this question, but I'm going to try to tie it into one. You have been in your career, whether it be acting, which you've been in big things in acting. You've been in baseball, right? Minor leagues. You talked about, you know, I think it was on the Dan Patrick show. You had talked about, which we'll mention in a minute, but your relationship with a guy like David Justice. You talked about like all the things that you have done. You've been around some of, and yourself included, the best. You talked about your relationship with Barry. Have you ever seen someone at that elite of a level be blackballed as worse as Barry has?
No.
I don't think.
Listen, it doesn't get more elite than Barry.
Right.
All the guys that we've just discussed, the David Justices, you know, the David Ortizes that, you know, that we have coming soon on the podcast. All of these guys. Barry is the pinnacle, and I mean it when I say the greatest player to ever put spikes in dirt. You know, when we talk about the MVPs, we talk about the Gold Gloves, we talk about the only man ever to go 500. You know, I mean, there is no more elite in their field, I don't think, than Barry Bonds would be in baseball. And I have never seen anything, even a guy remotely close to that elite being blackballed. I mean, there's things that happen, you know, Will Smith with the Chris Rock thing, you know, but is he ultimately going to be blackballed? I don't think so. You know, no. He's Will Smith. I don't think you can try to erase him from what he's done in this other field that I've been fortunate to be a part of. Yeah, no, that's a great question, because I'm racking my brain right now to try to think of somebody that I mean, even Pete Rose. I mean, Pete Rose, the hit king, isn't close to Barry Bonds in what he's accomplished in baseball with those accolades and those numbers. The what was it, the year that he had more intentional walks than anybody else had walks? Right. There was one year where he reached base 327 times, or 326, I think, in 324 appearances. I mean, it was like, we used to have a joke when I was playing college baseball. One time I was fortunate enough to be in the middle of a just ridiculous stretch where I went 16 for 24 over the course of a week. Oh, wow. And one of my teammates comes into the locker room and he says, geez, it's like you're going 6 for 5 every night, bro. How is this happening? Like 6 for 5. It's like Barry going 326 for 324. It doesn't even compute.
It's video game numbers.
Yeah. Right. And I said it on the show. ESPN did a collage of all 73 home runs that he hit in that magical year.
Right.
And every swing looked identical. Everything from beginning to the little jab step that he did after he hit the ball, whether it was opposite field, center field, or the pull side, they all looked the same. And that was another level of locked in. I mean, as a hitter, I understand how difficult it is to be so locked into your technique that no matter where you're hitting the ball, the move, you could superimpose them over each other and they would look the same. It was amazing. It was just ridiculous to watch.
Last thing, my favorite player of all time is Tony Gwynn, not remotely close, okay? And I listened to Tony talk when he was the head coach at San Diego State, and he said that one time they were like at an all-star game event, something like that, and he blindfolded Barry Bonds. And he said, I'm going to put the tee right here. If you think your swing is as level as you think it is, you'll hit the ball wherever I place it. He said Barry Bonds hit it 10 out of 10 times, and then he started giggling after he hit the second one because he knew that it wasn't going to change. And just to think about something like that and where we are now, man, but look, y'all's podcast is electric. Like, look, man, it was probably the best episode of baseball podcast I'd ever listened to. So Hollywood Swinging, we'll let everybody know where you can get all of it, at the end here. But I do have some more questions that I got for you. So we talked about David Justice, right? And I got to ask you, man, the relationship that you had with David, a lot of people don't know that y'all are actually kind of close, but you got to play him in that movie. And so going back and look at the iconic part of that when you were sitting there kind of just taking a little BP in the cage and you were saying, hey, man, I'm David Justice. And being able to be a friend of him and know that, like, can you take us through having to actually play a really good friend of yours in a movie like that?
Yeah, it was fairly nerve-wracking. The one thing that I had going for me was that when I was young, I really, really was fond of him as a player. Like, but my teammates in college called me Baby Justice. So, I mean, when we would play wiffle ball, I would practice his stance. I knew his swing inside and out. And I knew him from when I got to the Braves minor league system. I actually, if you go to the Moneyball Blu-ray DVD, they have a bonus section called The David Justice Story, where I tell how I met David and how we became friends. Long story short, one of my teammates in college asked me if I had seen the Braves game. I went home and watched it that night. I was like, oh, my God, it's like looking in a mirror. Later that summer, I went to a Giants game where the Braves were in town just to meet him. He gave me some gloves. I went and I got my scholarship to Riverside. I had a 22-game hitting streak with his gloves. Went back that summer to see him at the Giants game, told him about the streak. Later that year, I signed with the Braves, went to spring training, saw him in camp. He took me under his wing, told everybody around camp, this is my little brother. You treat him like you treat me. And then the rest is history. So knowing him so well and being so close to him, it was a little nerve-wracking because I I didn't want to get it wrong. I knew that I could do his swing, but I wanted to go a little bit deeper and learn about, mannerisms and certain things that he would say. And, when we went and had the premiere at Toronto International Film Festival, David sat right next to me at the premiere. Him and his wife, Rebecca, sat right next to me at the premiere, and I had not seen it yet. I hadn't seen anything. So I'm just like, oh my God, I hope I did well. I hope I did this right. I hope I did this right. And when the movie when the movie was ending and the credits were rolling, he looked at me, he extended his hand, he shook my hand. He said, "You did a great job, bro. You did a great." And his wife was like, "You nailed it."
Did you feel relieved like when he did that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because he's my buddy. He's like my big brother. I don't want to make him look bad. I don't want to do anything that would, disparage him in any way or make him look like, there's an interesting story. When I spoke to Billy Beane, the actual Billy Beane, when we were in Oakland Coliseum, he was on the field watching us film. And I said, listen, I want to know, is this really how David was, or is this being embellished for the film? He was like, to be honest with you, Stephen, David was my best clubhouse leader. He was not like this. He got it right away. He came in. I didn't have to ask him to be a leader. He was, over a decade-long veteran at the time. He came in, he got it, and it was smooth with him. So, I really just wanted to make sure that I got it right and that he was proud of the way that I portrayed him, and that he was that I showed him that the way I visualize him, the way I see him in my eyes, is in a very, very good light.
The most iconic to me lines in any sports movie is when you're talking with Chris Pratt and he said,
I already know what you're going to say.
My general
good luck with that.
It is iconic, dude. Do you know?
Can I tell you something?
Yes, please.
That was improv. That was improv.
You can kind of tell a little because like you're eating the cereal, and you're like, well, good luck with that. Dude, you understand how much I use that meme? Okay.
It dawned on me as he walked out of the room. I was like, I gotta say something leader-like. I gotta say something. And so I just, well, good luck with that. And fortunately, Bennett Miller, our awesome director, fortunately, he kept it, man, because a lot of people, say that, and it has grown legs. It's been awesome.
Our last thing for the baseball, and I want to talk about your podcast and some of the other thing. One more thing for you. What does it feel like to be a part of? So, for example, Euclid that was at Boston. Some of these guys that are analytical dudes around baseball. What was it like to be a part of a movie that showed the world where Major League Baseball had gone? Because when you think about like Tampa Bay is nothing but analytical data. Don't bunt, don't walk, get on first, don't steal, get to second, whatever. A lot of teams that have adopted that. As a baseball guy yourself, what does that feel like to be a part of something so massive in one of the biggest sports?
I really liked it because it allowed people who weren't necessarily baseball, deep into baseball. They were just a casual fan, or maybe their husband was a fan and they weren't. They got brought to see the movie with their husband or whatever. It allowed them to really understand what was going on in that time and how these teams, certain teams had bigger payrolls, other teams had smaller payrolls, but they had to compete with the big guys and they had to figure out ways to do it. I really enjoyed being a part of the explanation, you know what I mean? And allowing people to really, have the light bulb go on and say, wow, okay, so that's what this is about. And that's how, okay, I see how you can make Jason Giambi out of three guys. You just gotta, combine them and use them properly, and you can create those same numbers. If you just plug them in the right times against the right pitchers, you might be able to get the same outcome over the course of a season.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've had multiple scouts and SEC coaches, GMs on the show, and all of them say the same thing about analytical data. Like, listen, I look for the best athlete, but if he's doing something good in analytics, it makes my job that much easier because of, you know, everything that had going on. But last thing for you here, Stephen, you talked about the writers' strike or the strike. Can you just give us your perspective as you've been an actor and you're going through this? Can you give us your perspective on that?
You know, listen, we as actors, I mean, our strike started today, you know what I mean? And, you know, we've been in solidarity with the writers, and, you know, there's other unions that we're in solidarity with. And the thing is, you know, nobody wants to strike. Nobody wants to not be able to work, but we all want to be treated fairly and, you know, share in the fruits of our labor. We don't want to feel like we're taken advantage of or anything like that. So, you know, I trust our membership and our leaders to negotiate the contracts for us properly. I trust the producers and the studios to, you know, eventually see, you know, what needs to be done is the right thing, and everybody needs to be happy about the way, you know, they are sharing in what is being generated by all of our work. You know, I hope it doesn't last long, because I want to work, and I'm fortunate to be in a good place right now in my career where I've got 3 projects in the can right now. I've got 2 films and a TV pilot in the can right now. So, you know, there's going to be, if it does extend, I still have things that are going to come out, so it's not going to affect my exposure. But I want to keep working while I still have the ability, and while I still have the interest from the fans and the viewers, you know. And
Right.
I just think that once we all get to the table and we have, you know, calm and reasonable conversation, I think that eventually it will work itself out. But like I said, I just, you know, I stand with my union. I stand with the other unions. We have to do sometimes unpleasant things in life that we don't want to do, but, you know, eventually I hope everything works out for the best.
Well, one thing that, look, is I know that's going to be fantastic is Hollywood swinging, man. Like, listen, I've done this for a long time. What y'all have going on there is fantastic. Can you tell everybody where they can catch y'all's podcast? You talked about Big Papi coming on there. I'm going to need you to get a Yankee on there. Okay. You got.
We're working on it. We're working on it. We're working on it. We're working on some, you know, Jerry was a world champion with the Yankees.
That's
correct. Know, and Justice was a Yankee. Don't forget that.
And listen, because, you know, I talked to your guys' producers when we were scheduling this, and they asked about Jerry. I say, listen, as a Yankees fan, I might cry if the man showed up.
Yeah, no, we're going for.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. We're going for, you know, we're going for some big fish. So, you know, I don't want to give it away who we're trying to go for. I'm sure you can guess when we talk Yankees and I say big fish, but, you know, we're trying to, you know, bring a lot of good names to the table and let people get a chance to know them a little bit better in a real casual conversation type of way. Most of the people that we've done thus far, we've got, I think, 11 shows in the can so far, and they're friends of ours. You know what I mean? Like, right. you know, Barry and Big Papi is a friend of mine, and Justice we did Justice, Cedric the Entertainer. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, and Stitch. We're on the Believe network. I mean, they're hosting the pod. So, you know, I really appreciate you, you know, you saying what you said. That was our first episode. And honestly, you know, we're kind of just winging it. You know what I mean? Just having a good time and trying to do the best job we can. So to have somebody like a veteran, like you say, we're doing a good job is an honor. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And Stephen, I got to admit, man, it's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. You got a lifelong listener, and me and everybody that we